In a dystopian future, the Earth's atmosphere is uninhabitable for humans, so they built a massive underground bunker called Silo. A large community of 10,000 people resides in this bunker, which has sheltered multiple generations of mankind. The residents know nothing about their history because all the data, including files, books, and drives, was apparently destroyed 140 years earlier during an unsuccessful mutiny. The silo is controlled by the ruling elite, and they set rules to manage the residents. At the beginning of the season, we see Sheriff Holston Becker walk into a cell with a cup of coffee and lock himself up. His deputy, Sam Marnes, shows concern, but Sheriff Holston says he wants to venture outside, something that is strictly forbidden and serves as a death sentence. All the silo residents have been conditioned to believe that leaving the silo will poison them. In a flashback from 3 years ago, Holston and his wife Allison won the lottery, which means the ruling elite granted them permission to conceive a baby within a year. The doctor removed Allison's birth control implant, and since it was their third time winning the lottery, they really hoped they'd conceive this time. Everyone blesses the couple, but when a fertility expert, Gloria Hildebrandt, offers her services, the couple ignores her. In the next scene, Allison's boss, Bernard, reprimands her for publishing an article about how to recover deleted data. Allison believes if everyone learned the skill, they could finish work sooner. Her boss warns her to be careful in the future and deletes her article. Half a year goes by and the couple has no luck conceiving the baby, but they keep their morale high. One day, Gloria approaches Allison again, and through the old lady, Allison learns about the underlying scheme behind Silo. One day, the IT expert George Wilkins asks Allison for some assistance in his repair shop, and together they uncover a forbidden drive from the pre-rebellion era. On Freedom Day, the day that marks the end of the rebellion and is celebrated, Allison and George decrypt a file that shows a normal outside world, as opposed to the apocalyptic one shown through cameras at Silo. On top of that, Gloria tells Allison the truth about her implant still being in place, leaving Allison shocked that the ruling elite never really allowed them to procreate. As a result, she removes the implant herself, leaving her weak and drenched in blood. Instantly, she heads toward the dining area, where she addresses everyone that they are being lied to. She also tells everyone that the screens are manipulated to keep them locked inside Silo and demands to be let outside. As per law, whoever expresses to venture outside is punished immediately and made to leave. While Holston looks on tearfully, Allison promises to clean the cameras if she thinks the outside world is inhabitable. Otherwise, she will just wave. Then she is dressed up in an environmental suit as per Silo's pact, after which she exits to the outside world. Moments later, everyone sees her on the screen, and she cleans the cameras, implying that the outside world is indeed inhabitable. However, she collapses shortly and apparently dies. 2 years go by, and a grieving Holston lives a life of solitude until he hears that George Wilkins committed suicide. He decides to investigate it and meets Juliet Nichols, George's partner and an engineer who works on the generator at the lowest level of Silo, which powers the entire bunker. Juliet believes that George was murdered and tells Holston that he used to collect forbidden historical relics. Since Holston knows Allison was working with him, he deduces that his wife might still be out there. In the present, Holston confides in Deputy Marnes from inside the cell that he is leaving to look for his wife, even though they can see her through the screens, exactly where she collapsed. When he steps outside, he realizes that his wife is right. The outside world is beautiful and inhabitable, so he cleans the cameras and takes his helmet off, but instantly he starts struggling to breathe. The Silo residents watch in anguish as Holston crawls to his wife, where he apparently dies. This really upsets Juliet, who blames Holston for lying and getting her hopes up. Holston's death causes unrest among the residents, which prompts the Judicial, the law enforcement organization in Silo, while the sheriff's office sends agents to control the situation, led by Robert Sims, the head of security. In a flashback, we learn that George promised Juliet to tell her something important that he had discovered, but he never returned. And the next day, his body was found at the bottom of the central stairs. When Holston promises her confidentiality, Juliet shows him the candy dispenser and a note from George that says, "Remember where you were the last time you saw it. I found what I was looking for." Then Juliet takes Holston to an underground secret chamber that harbors an enormous digging machine, probably the one that helped make Silo. Then they get to George's tent, which contains a bag of forbidden hard drives and a manual instructing on how to access them. Noticing Allison's writing on it, Holston asks Juliet to keep a low profile, while he investigates further, promising to signal her if he finds something. Back to the present, Deputy Marnes informs Mayor Ruth Jans that Holston nominated Juliet as the next sheriff. Meanwhile, Juliet descends deeper into the chamber, looking for a door that George was searching for, but finds nothing in the watery dig space beneath the silo, so she returns to her room and drinks herself into oblivion. In the next scene, Deputy Marnes and Mayor Ruth descend 144 levels to find Juliet and take the opinions of Juliet's estranged father, Dr. Pete Nichols, as well as Juliet's friend, Martha Walker, regarding Juliet's conduct. While Bernard, the head of IT, and Judge Meadows, the head of Judicial, disapprove of the mayor's decision to make Juliet the next sheriff, Sims suggests Paul Billings, a member of Judicial, as the new sheriff. Mayor Ruth dismisses him and finally meets Juliet, who initially wants nothing to do with the post, but when she notices the word truth carved on the back of Holston's badge, she agrees. Then she asks the mayor to allow a power outage of 8 hours so she can fix the damaged generator that runs Silo. The mayor agrees and notifies everyone to prepare for it. Juliet and her mechanical team manage to fix the damaged blade, and no one notices how the screens show a healthy green life outside briefly. Before leaving for her new job, Juliet entrusts Martha with a camera that she found in George's bag. When she gets to Mayor Ruth's office, she is taken aback to see the mayor dead. As it happens, Mayor Ruth and Deputy Marnes confess their love for each other, after which Johns collapses, bleeding from her mouth. Marnes is disheartened, especially since Ruth drank from his water flask, which means someone intended to kill him by lacing his water with rat poison, which goes undetected. Bernard, the interim mayor, swears Juliet in as the new sheriff. Juliet asks the sheriff's office assistant Sandy to bring her George's file, but she snarkily responds that that is the only file they do not have. Instead, she gives Juliet a file that Holston prepared for her, but before she can go through it, Juliet rushes to stop Deputy Marnes from attacking a guy named Frankie, whom he accuses of having poisoned Ruth, given his history with substances. Juliet strikes a deal with Marnes to help him investigate Ruth's murder if he helps her find who killed George. In a flashback, we see a 13-year-old Juliet leave her father's home after the deaths of her mother Hannah and brother Jacob, after which she goes to live with Martha Walker in the mechanicals. In the next scene, Juliet notices a noise in the vents in her office and finds George's file stashed in it, probably by Holston before he left. However, she is unable to find George's hard drive that Holston seized. Later that night, someone attacks Marnes and kills him. The next day, Sims announces Paul Billings as the new deputy, while Sandy asks Juliet to figure out who actually killed Marines, or Judge Meadow will simply frame someone for it. Juliet manages to find planted evidence in the apartment of Patrick Kennedy, a Silo resident, so she hides him in a new location. Billings notices this and visits Sims, who introduces him to Doug Trumbull, the man who killed Marnes planted the evidence. Billings then heads to Juliet and tells her that Judicial is planning to get rid of her by giving her a fake suspect. One step ahead of them, Juliet waits near Patrick's house, and when Doug shows up, she accuses him, after which he escapes. Since Sims' plan doesn't come through, he shoves Doug through the central stairs, killing him and cutting all loose ends. Meanwhile, Judge Meadow blames Doug posthumously for killing Ruth and Marnes and closes the case. On the other hand, Martha figures out that the camera's technology is quite advanced as to what is allowed in Silo, so she asks Juliet to quit her job as sheriff. However, Juliet decides to use the candy dispenser as bait to reopen the investigation into George's death. She plants it in Doug's apartment beforehand, and when her team comes across the candy dispenser, it implies that Doug was involved in George's murder. Since it is forbidden to keep relics from before the silos for more than 12 hours without reporting the authorities, Billings persuades Juliet to visit Judge Meadows. Juliet agrees and convinces the judge to reopen George's case. Billings advises Juliet to be extra cautious since the judiciary will be now monitoring her very closely. Following the investigation, they happen upon Regina Jackson, a supposed relics dealer who turns out to be George's ex-girlfriend. When she doesn't seem upset about George's death, Juliet gets suspicious, but Regina assures her that the only thing that ever mattered to George was to find out some answers, which is why he got involved with Juliet. Hearing this, Juliet leaves and wonders if she should quit this job and investigation since George was only using her. She confides in Martha, who calms her down and asks her not to be erratic. In the next scene, Juliet is summoned by Bernard and Sims, and the latter confronts her, saying that they were unable to find the candy dispenser at Doug's apartment in the initial search, and since she was seeing George, it made her almost a suspect. Bernard intervenes and accepts Juliet's declaration that she did not plant the candy dispenser, but he orders her to stop investigating Doug's motives behind murdering Marnes and Ruth. The next day, Regina tells Juliet that though she didn't tell anyone about George's hard drive, someone from the judiciary followed her home one day and asked her to name her relic merchants, which is why she told them about George, to save her family. Then she hands over a children's book titled Amazing Adventures in Georgia, which dates from before the silo. Regina leaves, and Juliet goes through the pages of the book, unaware that she is being spied on by surveillance cameras. Juliet notices the signatures of multiple people on the book, including Gloria. Coming to Gloria, she is being drugged on the orders of Judge Meadows. When Juliet sees her condition, she decides to visit Meadows to stop George's medication. She even offers to resign as sheriff, but soon she realizes that Meadows is just following orders, and all this while Sims is keeping a close watch on her through the surveillance cameras planted carefully in the mirrors. With no other hopes, Juliet heads to her father, Dr. Pete, and he risks his entire career and life to smuggle Gloria out of her room. Juliet learns through Gloria that she hails from flamekeepers, a secret group of individuals dedicated to remembering the past. For quite some time, the authorities have been systematically wiping out the flamekeepers, and Juliet's mother, Hannah, was an ally to this group. Gloria is the one who handed over this book to Ann Wilkins, George's mom, who passed it on to him. When Gloria mentions that former Sheriff Holston asked her to put flowers in front of the mirrors, Juliet realizes that they are being spied on through cameras behind the mirrors. She covers the mirror and goes on to retrieve George's hard drive that Holston hid in Gloria's room. Sims is alerted by Juliet's actions and instantly sends in his team to arrest her, but they don't find her in Gloria's room, as she has already escaped. Sims resumes Gloria's medication and has the Judicial search the sheriff's office for the hard drive. Juliet learns through Billings that it is illegal to raid the sheriff's office, so she arrests Sims for violating the law. Next, she breaks into Sims' office and finds files on Hannah, Shirley Campbell, and Martha. She goes through her mother's files and learns that Judicial learned about Hannah's illegal multi-lens magnifier through the surveillance cameras, which is why they destroyed it. All this time, Juliet believed it was Pete who had informed the authorities. Broken-hearted, Juliet reconciles with her father, who tells her that Hannah could not bear the death of their son Jacob, which she thought could have been prevented by the magnifier, and this is why she committed suicide. Moving on, Juliet tries to decode the hard drive but is unable to. Since high security measures have been implemented in Silo, she is unable to reach Martha. When she is detained at one of the checkposts, Bernard finds and rescues her, taking her to a hidden cornfield. Suddenly, Sims also shows up and Bernard reveals himself to be the mastermind behind everything, including Ruth's and Marne's deaths. The two arrest Juliet and confiscate her hard drive, falsely claiming that Juliet is asked to venture outside. As she is being taken away, Juliet jumps along with the hard drive from the central stairs to escape. She breaks into Sims's house and accesses the hard drive on his authorized computer, where she discovers a video message from George. On the other hand, Billings heads to Juliet's apartment and comes across the children's book. It moves him, and he keeps a page while burning the rest of it. Meanwhile, Bernard tracks down the serial number of the hard drive and locates Juliet, so Sims and his team rush to arrest her. However, Sims's wife helps Juliet escape, and Patrick disables some of the surveillance cameras to protect Juliet, who reaches his apartment. Through the help of an IT expert, Danny, Juliet watches George's video message where he claims his love for her and asks her to find a 15-foot-tall metal door in the depth of Silo. Following George's instructions, the trio watches a video titled Jane Carmody Cleaning, with a lush green landscape and birds flying in the sky, implying that the people of Silo have been deceived all this time. The trio then escapes through a garbage chute as Sims and his men are following them, and Juliet has Danny broadcast the Jane Carmody video to every screen in Silo. Bernard quickly initiates shutdown, after which Juliet escapes to the mechanical but is shortly arrested. Bernard destroys the hard drive and offers Juliet a deal. If she agrees to go out herself, he will spare her friends at mechanical and tell her what actually happened to George. Juliet agrees, so Bernard shows him the footage where George commits suicide to avoid interrogation about the flamekeepers. Next, Juliet receives a note from Martha telling her that her environment suit is safe. On the other hand, Billings tells his wife that Bernard and Sims are aware of his syndrome, a certain disease in the silo, but they are willing to make an exception by making him sheriff. In the end, Bernard gives Juliet Holston's badge as a parting gift, and everyone gathers to watch her walk out. When she steps out, she realizes that her helmet is displaying the same pre-recorded lush landscape footage, so she does not clean the cameras. Then she walks over to Holston and puts his badge on him, and in doing so, her view glitches like a hologram. Seeing this, Bernard rushes to the server room and uses a key labeled 18 to turn off Juliet's display, which shows her the world how it really is, destroyed and desolate. Juliet realizes that others that ventured out of Silo must have had faulty tapes, which let the toxic gases seep into their suits. Since Martha ensured that Juliet's heat tape perfectly sealed her suit, Juliet started walking away safely. She climbs the crater surrounding the silo, only to realize that there are several craters ahead, each with their own silo. This is where the season ends. With that, the movie ends. Thanks for watching Silo. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you next time. Welcome, sci-fi fans. Futurist Flicks is thrilled to launch our exclusive membership program, designed for loyal fans like you. By joining, you'll unlock early access to recap videos, unseen recap videos, raffle prizes, free merch giveaways, exclusive content and behind-the-scenes insights, access to community events, live streams, and Q&A sessions. Join the Cosmic Crew today and get instant access to exclusive perks. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more intergalactic adventures.